Hello, welcome to the second day of January 2022. This is the Good Life Meditation. This is something that I do every day to remind myself of my objectives and principles, to think about how I did applying those yesterday, and to forecast the day ahead and ready myself to live well. So first, yesterday. Nothing significant to report yesterday. It was a pretty straightforward day. I did throw in a nice adventure during the day, in addition to my usual walk with the dogs, where we climbed a mountain together. That was good. Good. The boys did great. I also picked a particularly rugged mountain here in the desert, and I attempted to climb it. Didn't even get a quarter of the way up. It turned out it was a lot more rugged than I thought, and I encountered a big fence, so that was tricky. But I enjoyed some time, thinking time, on the mountain, particularly thoughts about granite, the formation of granite, and then I sat on a granite lip, kind of a cliff, and I kind of laid on the rock there, looking out over the city, and tried to imagine. How none of us existed while that granite was being formed millions of years ago. That was fun. I enjoyed doing stuff like that. Otherwise, it was a very straightforward day. I simply attended to my duty, had some fun, got a lot of good reading done, and it was good. Slept really well last night. I was tired. I went to bed. I was asleep before 9 o'clock, and I slept solid all the way until about 4:30. Then I woke up and thinking a little bit. Here comes little Rudy. Hey, Rudy. All right, let's do our Good Life meditation. You can do it. Good jump. First, 7 objectives. The first of these is to have my state and living in a condition that I'm always ready to die, so that if my life fails today and I become a corpse, I have my affairs in order, my relationships in order, and my life's effort in order. And I do. I even went so far as yesterday to even remind you, Miko, that I have a special folder and a printout of all our bank accounts and passwords, all accounts and passwords, and a special one for finances and another one for other stuff, so that she can access that. Just came to mind yesterday. I thought that's a good thing to do because I run all that stuff in our life. It's good to make sure that she knows that stuff's there. Number 2 is to have to make good and effective use of time. Number 3 is to develop and maintain good and sound life principles. That's these very things I'm talking about now. Next is to cultivate good emotional reactions. Boy, if I do say so myself, I'm getting really good at that. It's really rare that anything can ambush me anymore. I mean, I'm sure it can happen, and I'll remain vigilant. Next is to perform good actions, followed by recognizing true limits and true opportunity, what is and what is not within my control, so that I can then bring apathy to bear upon that which is outside my control. And then just to do one thing at a time, and to do that thing slowly. Now, 30 principles. The principle of war. Here's the other dog. A reminder to always be fighting against everything that I believe and hold as true, and everything of importance that others propose as well. Hey, Allie. You want to come up here? You want to get that? 2. The principle of reason, and the sub-principles of honesty, objectivity, and doubt. to use reason as my way of thinking, to ascertain what is true about the world, and to be skeptical, honest, and objective. 3, the homunculus, the reminder that I don't have a soul. All I have is my consciousness, and that my consciousness will die with me, and there's no chance that that's ever coming back. It's an important theme that runs throughout my good life meditation, is that death is eternal. Next is the Anchorhold. I just realized that rock I was sitting on yesterday on the mountain, that big hunk of granite, was kind of like an Anchorhold, which is a big piece of rock sticking out of an imaginary sea. And the homunculus stands on top of that rock, and the sea churns, and the tide rises, and the winds blow, and the rain comes down, and it's cold and scary. Sometimes the sun comes out, but that's us, living our lives in all its various and sundry experiences and ways, suffering and enjoying, until one day we'll fall into the sea, or the sea will overtake us. Heaven forbid we jump. Next is, so that was 2 principles, the homunculus and the Anchorhold. Next comes the home of good and evil. Which is a visual image of writing down these objectives and principles on a substance, where I can write it in chalk inside my head, on the inside of my skull, and the wind will blow it away. It's just that's a reminder that our values are, with the exception of the mandate to have children, are nothing more than opinions. That right and wrong are really subjective, unless we can agree upon something as being objectively right, and then even then it's only objective insofar as 2 or more human beings agree. We really are just playing with Play-Doh all through our lives, coming up with values, forming them. Look what I made. Then we die, and the elements weather it away, and it never really amounted to much otherwise, except for what was inside my head, and your head, and our heads. The next principle is the atomic principle. Everything is made of bits and pieces, flowing and changing and forever transforming. So too you and I. Then comes the principle of nature. Everything has some particular nature, which is so helpful. Actually, I used that one yesterday. I called my mom, which is the trickiest relationship I've got. I called her to wish her a Happy New Year's. And she launched, as always, into something, trying to provoke a fight, or at least confusion, or, how do you describe it? It's almost like, when I communicate with her, it's like she's lighting firecrackers and throwing them up in the air to land around me, bam, 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 to startle and upset the world. And I think she does the same with others too. I know she does the same with my brother. And she did that, and I started to take the bait, and I stopped and I said, "Wait, Kurt, this is just her nature. Just run with it. The point that she's making is insignificant and trivial, utterly without consequence. And the fact that she's got it wrong, it doesn't matter. So instead of fighting her about it, which is what she's after, just, oh, really? That's interesting. Okay, good. Well, I hope you had a nice New Year's," and then end the call, which is what I did. So that enlisted the principle of recognizing the nature of someone, and that's the nature of my mom to do that. Recognizing my true limits. I don't have the ability to change the way she is. I used temperance to control my reaction, and then the good use of time by ending the call after I'd completed my intended purpose. Yeah, good use of my principles there, if I do say so myself. Next is the pirate ride. My cautionary suggestion that free will is an illusion, that we are more a consequence of the universe unfolding before us than an agent acting on our own behalf. Next comes the principle of maturity and the sub-principles of wisdom and fortitude. We are mature when we wisely apply our will towards better ends. I like the way that came out. Always trying to mix up the way I say these things. Then comes the social principle. We're social animals, we need each other. Then the public speaking, a reminder to use few words, deliberate words, social words, and to not gossip. Then comes temperance, a reminder to control my consumption of all things, including life itself. And the sub-principles of suffering, simplicity, and apathy. Because we suffer when we deny ourselves what we want. And a temperate life is a simple life. And apathy is where we recognize what is not within our control, and we consume our efforts to make change, or to change the world around us, where it's outside of our control. Like my mom, what she is and who she is large, for the most part outside of my control. I'm apathetic to that fact. Really, I'm getting better at it, but it'd really be good if I could get to be really, truly apathetic. Engaged and caring, but at the same time disengaged to the points that I know I can't impact, accepting them as they are. Next comes the principle called the horror show. Life is an experience chock full of horror for everyone. If not directly at us and happening to us, happening all around us and throughout history. And onward it goes. Chock full of horror. The kind of stuff that'll keep you up at night and give you nightmares. That's all this principle is that reminder, because I don't want to forget. Because I want to remain this. I want to keep a sober application of my living against that fact. Even if the horror isn't happening to me, it's happening to others and other creatures. And I want to be mindful of that. Make my life a virtuous life towards relieving that, making the world better in some way. The next principle is called that which must be borne, which is the horror. The sub-principle there is hand on the tiller, steering a ship through the sea, the stormy seas, the rough seas, the still seas, the windy seas, keeping our eye on the aim. Then comes the Feast of Offal, which is the experience of getting upset and throwing our upset out into the world so that everybody else can share that upset. I call that the Feast of Offal, and I try not to do that, and I try not to consume the feast that others have. Oh, excuse me. Next is distraction. We live our lives trying to distract ourselves from something awful. And that awful thing is the next principle, the great indifference. The great indifference is that background, hollow emptiness of the universe, devoid of any seeming management or guidance or control, where even natural laws are descriptive rather than prescriptive. That's an awful fact. We don't want to see it. So we throw ourselves into our work and our families and our homes and our hobbies and alcohol and bowling and whatever distraction we can find, so we don't have to see that fact. Next is the best seat in the house, and a reminder to not want to be anyone else or be doing anything else or being anywhere else, but to be okay with just where I am and who I am and what I'm doing. Next is the Path of Wildness, which was my first principle, the very first one I ever came up with. It's a reminder that sometimes to keep life wholesome and interesting, we have to push out of the safe and the sane into the unknown, into a course where we don't know. That's a real centerpiece for my life, this idea of the Path of Wildness. Next is the risk of avoiding risk. There's the easy stuff and the hard stuff in terms of life endeavors. And I call the easy stuff easy, but it's not. I mean, it's only easy because it's well sanctioned by our society and our families. And these are things like going to school, completing a higher education, getting a good job, finding a spouse, buying a house, having children, saving for retirement, etc. There's very few that would object to any of those things, and we're supported and encouraged to do those. But I also propose that there's a deeper need in many of us, not all of us, but many of us, to find ourselves and to do some sort of art before we're gone, to make our barbaric yelp howl at the night sky as the coldness comes in. And I would just simply recommend to try to attempt, if you feel like you want the latter, try to attempt that too, in addition to the normal, the safe and sane. And it's best to do that at a young age, in the 20s. So I recommend giving oneself the decade of the 20s to pursue one or more great life adventures, and then come back in their 30s and settle in, or not, if you want to keep the adventure going. But watch out. If you don't settle in, if you don't, especially if you don't abide the social principle, you might find yourself lonely and frightened and with lots of stories, but no one to really share them with later in life. Watch out. Next comes sin and damnation. Sin and damnation. There are 7 sins in my worldview. These are credulity, overwillingness to believe; hope, which is it's nothing. It's nothing more than desire. Desire uncoupled from action is just like a car with a broken transmission. Faith, which is just absurdity, the absurdity of claiming that the lack of evidence is evidence, which is it's just such nonsense. And somehow faith has gained a sense of being a virtue in our world, when it's nothing. It's just an excuse to believe where there's no good evidence to believe. Dogma is belief. The sub-principle of dogma is the idea of the sin of dogma is to believe things just because there's like a big book that proposes it, or there's a tradition that says so. Then the sin of authority, which is believing someone based on their office or their clothing or their rank or their title. And then finally, gossip. And the damnation part of sin and damnation is that we live a damned life when we engage in these things. Next is complete oblivion. When we die, our consciousness will apparently be utterly wiped out. And within a short amount of time, our bodies too. And then everything that we are will be gone. I was thinking just in the shower this morning about how I had a secret with someone who's dead now. I still have that secret. No one, unless he told anybody, but I don't think he did. And I only know that secret. It's a harmless secret. It's a secret that would have, at the time, it would have caused some embarrassment. But now it's nothing. And nevertheless, that fact alone, that fact made me realize that these things like a secret that you could hold with somebody, that when you both die, that secret dies with you. That secret doesn't exist anywhere. The secret was only a consequence of what was held in one's mind or in the minds of people themselves. Like I have secrets with my wife that she and I know that maybe in some cases, maybe they're not even secrets. They're more just facts that maybe only two people or a limited number of people will hold. But those facts only kind of exist in any way as long as they're locked somewhere in the brain cells of one or more people. I guess that comes back down to the atomic principle in a way. Complete oblivion. They're going to be gone for good, forever, nevermore. Next comes the great life adventure, which I already kind of talked about. Something to do young in life, to have some wonderful adventure that you can make your own. Pardon me. It becomes kind of a keystone event in your life, a milestone event, and part of our identity. It's good to have those. The season of philosophy is a time to record what we've learned along the way, to write our book, to make our poem, to paint our painting, take that photo, make that story, and share that story. That's the season of philosophy. But don't wait, because the muse has a way of shutting up. Next comes bullseye aim. Striving for the mark, but usually missing by some degrees. Sometimes hitting it, but usually not. And recognizing that's the case. Next is the uphill climb. Life is a steady uphill clamber. Trudge, trudge, trudge. Beware stopping too long, because there's a vista at every level. But don't forget to enjoy the view along the way. Arena and utility. Life is an arena for the execution of our life, and these principles that I'm describing are my utilities for getting by. Nothing is enough. This principle simply suggests that less is sometimes plenty, or better, yet more than enough. And then finally, the principle of fun. A reminder to have fun, which I'm doing. And I'm going to really execute that principle today. I really want to get through my book that I'm reading, Piers Plowman. Very interesting book. And enjoy the day. It's a Sunday after all. Why not enjoy it? Now let's forecast the day. It's a Sunday, like I said. Not much to do today. My chores are largely finished. Maybe a little shopping would be good. But I think the day is largely ours. I'm a little anxious about the coming week. I have a lot to do in earnest, and I will. That's the principle of nature. Tells me that's my nature. And I've done good work in the last couple of weeks to prepare for this week, so I think I'm in good shape. So I'm not going to worry too much. I wish you all the best. Remember to be safe, but not too safe. Take care.